I'm sorry I didn't get your text, dear boy.
I apologise.
Not at all. You did everything right. You sent me a text. My phone is on flight mode. Goodness gracious. I didn't know what flight mode was until these fellas told me about it. How are you? Feargal McCormack, our fiscal guru, here on the programme today.
Good to see you this morning, Rowan.
It is. I see Europe's catching up on you. The Commission is telling the people in the Republic you need to cut $2 billion in your budget that's to come shortly because you're not out of the woods yet. You've been warning people not to lose the run of themselves.
Well, I think basically the background of that story is it's not an additional $2 billion. What they're saying is that they want the government to continue to implement its budgetary control plan, which was committed to the IFF and the European Commission 3 years ago. And the reason that this is becoming a major topic at present is that the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council themselves published a very interesting document last week when they said, yes, they acknowledged, and so does Europe, that Ireland is currently actually, the exchequer figures are showing a growth of potentially 4.3% at present in the Irish economy.
That's huge.
It is huge, and to be fair, the good news is it's forecast to grow between 3 and 4% for each of the next 3 years, which is a fantastic story.
But that's cumulative.
Yeah, each year.
Each year, yeah.
Phenomenal.
But you have nothing like that in the north.
No, not at all, about 1%. But the point basically is here that because an election is potentially 18 months away, the government parties have been dropping hints that they were going to reduce tax rates, that they were going to not proceed with the $2 billion that Europe wishes them to proceed on the basis that revenue receipts were going to be up significantly. And that is based on exchequer returns originally to the end of June in the South.
Yes.
Now, what Europe is saying here is that it will be very risky and very dangerous to base such a strategic budgetary decision on 3 or 6 months exchequer returns. And that they believe that it is appropriate, as does the Irish Fiscal Council, to put in place those prudent procedures that were originally envisaged on the basis they will make the economy ultimately more competitive. And against that, the Irish Fiscal Council is also saying we need to learn from the past. The last thing we want is to fuel spending and therefore fuel another property boom in Dublin.
But is the government in the Republic, dare I use the phrase, foolish enough not to have learned that lesson? And are they foolish enough to go and start spending, go on an extravaganza of spending as a consequence of 6-month figures?
Well, I think politically, I appreciate I'm not a politician, but you have to look at a political situation.
Yeah, yes.
The last council elections, the government did very poor. Obviously, Sinn Féin did very well. Labour did very poor. And therefore, the government does not appear to have got an acknowledgement yet from the people, albeit recent opinion polls in the last couple of weeks are showing a little bit of support coming back to the government. But the government would not appear to have got support yet for what would be perceived, to be honest, internationally, a phenomenal turnaround story.
Absolutely.
Now what's happening is that obviously Jim Bolton, when she became leader of the Labour Party in the South, she basically decided to try and allegedly target the mobile Sinn Féin vote that moved. And she's putting massive pressure on some of our TDs to imply that we have to start giving something back to the workers. Now,
too soon.
Perhaps. Now, Michael Noonan, to be fair to him so far, has proven to be an astute finance minister in the South. And it's notable that he has not joined the chorus just yet calling for significant tax reductions.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, my gut feeling is that it'll be somewhere in between. I do think there will be some easing of tax rates, perhaps in this year's budget, but not implemented for a year or two, to try and benefit in an election, to say we're now reducing taxes. I think this year's budget, unfortunately, in the South will be an election budget. And we've now learned that with governments being elected every 4 years, that tragically in the last 18 months of every government, we can lose the run of ourselves and go after popular votes. And
so it's politics rather than wisdom.
Well,
yeah, there's a bit of that.
There's a bit of that. But I think common sense will prevail. I think the Irish people are a lot more sensible. They're in a better position now, albeit, and there is no doubt about it, that the corporate macro figures are looking good again. But at the micro level, everyone is still suffering, and we all acknowledge that. And that there's nobody not acknowledging that. But I think that the big thing is still look at ourselves, and despite all our hardness, look at our standard of living. You come through a generation that I haven't yet lived in, but I mean, I think you will acknowledge that for these people that continually say we're a lot worse off than we were 50 years ago, they're living in an imaginary world.
No, we're.
I mean, you hear, it amazes me the comments you hear even this week about health. I mean, why don't people be honest and grow up? We have a health service now which is unequal to what it was 20 years ago. We're living to an age now we never lived to. We're basically having a level of success in operations that was never achieved in the past.
It's true.
Why is the truth so difficult to say?
I don't know the answer to that. I think people maybe take a certain crazed internal pleasure from moaning and thinking the good old days and all the rest of it, and this is terrible today, but it's not. We're flying today. It's good.
Well, it comes back to the old economics motto. We have limited and scarce resources, and we choose how we use them. But, I mean, we can't give. It's like saying any of us tonight can just go out and spend. Yeah, we can, surely. No. But we'll be out of business, or we'll be out of our house in a few weeks' time.
We're constantly at a personal level. We are, unless I'm reading economics wrongly, we're a microcosm of government. We cannot do in our personal lives, just as, we cannot do something different to government, because government is working to balance the budget of all the families of the nation. We in our individual families have to employ our own unique and individual wisdom to manage your own affairs.
Well, I don't totally agree with you, because I think, and I'll explain to you why, I think government decisions implement our own personal circumstances, but governments certainly do have ideology upon which they can take decisions. Governments can drive an economy over a period of 20, 30 years in terms of policy, which will impact upon the individual's income levels, whereas at an individual level, we can never do that.
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. I see aero and space defence in London this morning in the index. They're all up, 4.5 up, 2.25. Everything's up. The shares are all up there. Is that an indication, perhaps, that we're becoming warlike again? We're going into the Middle East. There's going to be profitability there. Who can say?
Yeah, well, I suppose. What we are sure of is there's a level of uncertainty at present that there has been. We've been talking about this for the last year on a global basis, which actually does impact and impinge upon each of our personal circumstances, particularly on interest rates, exchange rates. Personally, I don't like war. No. I can see where there is evidence, even in Nazi Germany, that in periods of war, economic wealth can improve. I think it's a false wealth, because actually what it's really doing is, I think the highest value you can place on anything is a human life.
Of course.
And just personally, I don't like it.
No, and it's heading.
I think we haven't yet been able to find an appropriate way to punish nations. So I acknowledge I haven't come up with a solution, and I accept that.
Well, we try to punish through embargoes and through fiscal discipline, and we did it in relation to Russia. But Russia's hitting back. Money can't leave Russia anymore.
If you were in Germany, President, I'm not sure you'd be too happy with that. I mean, the German economy is very important, very dependent on Russia, and therefore,
absolutely.
It comes back to whether these embargoes can be more damaging for ourselves than for the country. I think at the end of the day, we have to win the hearts and minds debate, and maybe we need to put more.
As you say, we haven't got it yet.
Yeah, I just think it's something we need to. We as a society, I think this one thing the Scottish referendum did do, thankfully, it brought politics back up to the top of the agenda. The worst thing you can hear is young people walking down the streets saying, I have no interest in politics, it doesn't affect me. I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Absolutely.
And therefore, we have to get that political debate back among them. We have to give people back their franchise.
Absolutely, and a desire to exercise it and whatever. I see off the back of the referendum, Wales and Northern Ireland, and I think maybe is it England? Yeah, Wales, Northern Ireland, England. They're going to meet up the executive office of the minister and the deputy first minister to have a conference to see what we can get out of the referendum, because Scotland is obviously getting a tranche of largesse from it, and we're we're hoping we'll do something similar.
Well, Scotland did everybody a good favour in terms of devolved governments. I think you're going to see tax rates devolved here. I think that there are very hard decisions to be taken here, but you know, I think, and I do think, that we can keep putting this off, but the benefit versus the worker has to be thought out. We have to define how we can motivate as many people as possible who can potentially work to work. I mean, we have to get rid, and this may well be, we'll have to increase benefits for the genuine people, by the way, more genuine people, but we have to get rid of the mentality that the guy comes up to an employer and says, could you pay me perhaps 14 or 16 weeks? I don't want to lose my housing benefit. I don't want to lose this. If that's the mentality we're fostering, and yet we have other people working 40 and 50 hours a week and not enjoying the same standard of living, that can't be right.
No.
And where you see the difference is, you know, we have to face these realities. Some of our migrant people here are some of the, you talk to the employers in the area, they're some of the best employees they have.
Absolutely.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they want to work.
Hungry.
They're hungry
to work.
They want to make money, and they want to do
better.
better.
They want to grow their families.
Correct. They want to do better for their families.
Yeah,
and therefore, you know, there is a big challenge there. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying here, because behind it all, I believe in the welfare state. I believe that we have to provide for the needy, but I also believe the needy have a responsibility. And I don't like black economies, Rowan.
No.
I think I just don't like them.
No.
And by the way, I think that goes everywhere. It goes to sport as well.
Yeah.
I do not like
evil.
I do not like payments outside the system, because actually
evil lurks in the shadows.
What it does is it motivates. It ultimately motivates poor performance, because actually it allows a mentality to develop, which we as a society, certainly in Ireland, can't afford.
No. I was surprised. Were you surprised at the business in Hong Kong? They're starting to protest. I saw Hong Kong as the most stable place in the world.
I haven't been watching it that closely, but I have to say it's worrying, because
it's a rock of stability that's going.
I don't think it needs the unrest that it currently would appear. I think common sense should be able to prevail.
Well, listen.
I think the West needs to step in, by the way, as opposed to support the students. I think the West on this occasion needs to come in and says, we understand many of the students' requests, and we'd ask for a moratorium of 6 months to allow negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. What wisdom comes from the owl, our wise owl of Newry economic well-being?
Don't know about the wise.
I do.
But I noticed, Rowan, today you are sporting a phenomenal spirit of autumn.
Well,
don't mind me saying it.
Autumn is here.
You bring the tie, the jacket, and the cords, and the matching hair of an ancient gentleman with much youth.
I love that. That's as good. You're going to see me do judo in 10 minutes' time with Martin Savage, I tell you.
I was trying to understand why your hair was looking so good, but now I know you have it all set for the judo. Good man.
But now you know it.
He's going to retaliate here now in a minute. I'm going to pay for this smartness.
No, I would never attempt to joust with you in that area. I accept what you say to me I take it as a beautiful compliment. Thank you very much indeed. Now, tomorrow in that chair will sit Phil Coulter. And Phil is he's commencing his northern tour. He'll be with me for an hour, 9:30 to 10:30, and I'm playing some of his music today.
A great ambassador for the island.
Absolutely. You recall well, he came and did the concert for me at the cathedral. First for the monastery and then for Africa. Yeah. And he did that free of any charge whatsoever. Good man, a good and decent man.
Remember, Rowan, it is in giving we receive.
We've said that a million times.
And I have to give John Kearney one comment. He made a comment again which I thought was very, very important. He said the most important thing you can give, and it doesn't cost anything, is your word.
Your word.
Your word.
That's true.
But a lot of people give it but don't honour it.
Oh, that's true.
The challenge is to honour it.
Honour it, indeed. One of the things you mentioned, John Kearney, we're coming to the time of year again where people will be getting their winter fuel allowance. And last year, we commenced a scheme of a winter fuel pledge. People who have enough to begin on with. They don't need the 200 quid. So last year we encouraged, I think we got about 4,000 out of it, for the St. Vincent de Paul. You sign the pledge to the St. Vincent de Paul Society to give them your winter fuel allowance. And they take it and they buy fuel for folk in the community who need it at winter time. And I'm about to launch that this year again.
Well done,
so that'll come into focus again. John helped last year. You mentioned John Kearney. He helped last year by promulgating the message, as did the Dominicans. Now, Phil is here tomorrow, and I have a kind of shared spirituality with Phil through a commonality of loss. He lost a brother to the sea. I lost an uncle who was like a brother to the sea. Pat Hand, and in a diving tragedy, and Phil's brother went in a windsurfing accident. So as a consequence of that, he composed his own arrangement of For Those in Peril on the Sea. Phil Coulter, I'll play that for you now.
Okay.
Go well.